Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a new session. So, how are you all doing? Keeping healthy in this summer? Yes. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to this session. So, as I had already informed you all in our last session, that from today onwards, we are going to revise literary theory and criticism. All right. Yes. So, are you all ready? Yes. From today onwards, we will discuss questions of what? Literary theory and criticism. So I will bring for you absolutely net GRF style questions from this area. And I really hope these sessions will help you. Yes? Chalo, let's get started. Let me start by sharing my screen with you all. And do let me know after the session gets over in the comment section how you all like the questions. Okay. Chalo, so let's get started. I believe all of you can see my screen. Yes, yes. It is visible now. So welcome again to our NTA Net revision session 13. Are you all ready to take a look at the questions and answer them? Yes, are you? Great. So do like the session also. All right. Now let's get started. Here's your first question for tonight. Which of the following works by Carlyle, which argues for the divinity of all things and the rejection of dead religious dogma in favor of a phoenix-like rebirth of the human spirit, identifies the concept of natural supernaturalism? So which work of Carlyle here identifies the concept of natural supernaturalism? I'm sure this phrase, natural supernaturalism, reminds you all of a critical work by M.H. Abrams, Natural Supernaturalism, which talks about the critical aspects of romanticism, right? So tell me, which work by Carlyle identifies the concept of natural supernaturalism? Let me also open the chat box so that I can see what you all are saying. Yes, correct. Good evening, good evening. Do like the session, please. It is Sartor Resartus, yes. Sartor Resartus by Thomas Carlyle argues for the divinity of all things and the rejection of dead religious dogma in favor of what? A phoenix-like rebirth of human spirit, which identifies the concept of natural supernaturalism. It is also the title of a work by M.H. Abrams. Right? M.H. Abrams wrote a critical work on romanticism called Natural Supernaturalism. Right. Correct. Let's move on to the next question. It's a question on Harold Bloom's anxiety of influence. In Harold Bloom's influential work, The Anxiety of Influence, 1973, he outlines 6 revisionary ratios used by strong poets to clear imaginative space from their precursors. Which of the following ratios is incorrectly paired with its definition? So which term here has been wrongly matched with its definition? Tell me. 6 revisionary ratios of Harold Bloom's anxiety of influence? It is what? Kenosis. 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 Right. Let me explain kenosis to you. Kenosis is actually a movement of emptying or discontinuity, where the poet humbles themselves to break the influence of the precursor, often compared to the theological concept of Christ emptying his divine nature. So kenosis is not a counter sublime movement where the poet seeks to achieve an original power. No. Kenosis is a movement, or it's an attempt of emptying oneself. Kenosis is actually a theological idea where Christ emptied himself for the sake of mankind. Right. So kenosis is it's an attempt of the poet emptying himself. The poet emptying himself. But the poet humbles themselves to break the influence of the precursor. So kenosis has been wrongly described here. So please remember klinamen, tessera, kenosis, and ascesis. These are the 6 revisionary ratios of Harold Bloom's anxiety of influence. All right. Next question. According to which critique is the transition from the imaginary to the symbolic order mediated by the name of the father, which functions as a linguistic signifier that replaces the desire for the mother and establishes the law? So who is it who talked about all these ideas? Imaginary order, symbolic order, name of the father. The desire is replaced. The desire for the mother is replaced by the law. You know this. Who is associated with all these concepts? Imaginary order, symbolic order, and the phase where the desire for the mother is replaced by the law. Very easy. Obviously, Jacques Lacan. Right. It is the easiest question you can imagine. It is Jacques Lacan who talked about the imaginary order, the symbolic order, and how gradually the desire for the mother is replaced with the law because the child is scared that this desire for the mother might lead to castration. Right. So it's very easy. Okay. Next. Which term did Michel Foucault use to describe the underlying greed or subconscious structure of knowledge that determines what can be thought or said within a specific historical period? Which term was used by Foucault to talk about the underlying greed or subconscious structure of knowledge? Very easy, knowledge. Take that as the clue, na? What's wrong? Can you guys not hear me? It is episteme. The term episteme was used by Foucault to talk about the underlying greed or subconscious structure of knowledge that determines what can be thought or said during a particular time period. Very easy. Next. Here you have matched the following essays and the theorists. Ideology and ideological state apparatuses, the semiotic and the symbolic. What is a minor literature? The Negro and the language. All these are major essays by which theorists? All these are major essays by whom? Ideology and ideological state apparatus. That's by Althusser. The semiotic and the symbolic. That's by Kristeva. Kristeva. What is a minor literature? That's by Deleuze and Guattari. And the Negro and the language. That's by Frantz Fanon. Frantz Fanon. So Louis Althusser is famous for defining how the state maintains power through ideological state apparatuses like schools, churches, etc. Julia Kristeva introduced the distinction between the symbolic and the semiotic, right? Semiotic means fluidity, and the symbolic means law and order in language. Deleuze and Guattari wrote about minor literature in the context of Kafka, focusing on how a minority uses a major language. How a minority uses a major language. And finally, Frantz Fanon explored the psychological effects of colonization through language in his book Black Skin and White Masks. And the Negro and language is a chapter in his book Black Skin, White Masks, a book published in 1952. A book published in 1952. So which are the major works of Frantz Fanon? Which are the major works of Frantz Fanon? Black Skin, White Masks, 1952. Then The Wretched of the Earth, published in 1961. The Wretched of the Earth. He also wrote a book called A Dying Colonialism. A Dying Colonialism. All right. Please remember the chapter titles are also very important. Please look at the chapter titles of major theoretical works. Chapter titles of major theoretical works. So the Negro and language, it's a chapter in the book Black Skin, White Masks of Frantz Fanon, published in 1952. Right? Yes, correct. Next. So assertion reasoning question, assertion. New historicism is often criticized for its political quietism because it suggests that any attempt at subversion is ultimately contained by the dominant power structure. Reason, rooted in Foucauldian thought, new historicism views power as a pervasive circulatory web that produces the very resistance it then absorbs to reinforce its own authority. Is it true that new historicism is often critiqued because of its political quietism, because it suggests that any attempt at subversion is ultimately contained by the dominant political structure? Why? Because this very school of thought is largely molded by Foucault, Foucault's ideas of discourse and power and knowledge. And hence it sees power as widely circulating. Power is everywhere. It's a web. It goes round in circles. It produces a system where the resistance which is produced is absorbed by the very authority, the dominant social structure. Is it true or not? Yes. Answer is, wait. Both A and R correct. And R is the correct explanation of A. All of you are correct. Option 1 is the answer. See? Option 1 is the answer. So, assertion is correct. Critics, especially cultural materialists, they argue that new historicism is quietist or pessimistic because it often concludes that True revolution is impossible. Power is too smart and always stays one step ahead. Stephen Greenblatt and other new historicists utilized Michel Foucault's idea that power is not just a top-down repression but a productive force. Because power is everywhere, even subversive acts are often just part of the system's own internal mechanics of self-regulation. So here there are the reason directly explains why the criticism in A exists. Since new historicism relies on this specific Foucauldian model of containment, it leads to the perception that they don't believe in the possibility of real social change. All right. I hope you all like that. I hope you all like that question. This question was inspired by Net Paper of 2024. This particular question was inspired by the Net Paper of 2024. All right, so I hope you all like the question. Next, so if you are planning to sit for December Net exam, we are starting our Vallat UGC Net English Premium online course. The classes of this course will start from 10th of July. So do join us and learn with us. All right. Next. Which of the following works of post-colonial and feminist criticism have been written by Spivak? So which of the works here are by Spivak? Guys, please like the session. Which here are the works by Spivak? In other words, yes. Imperial Eyes, no. Outside in the Teaching Machine, yes. A Critique of a Post-Colonial Reason, yes. Death of a Discipline, yes. A, C, D, E. Option 2. A, C, D, E, yes. In other words, Outside in the Teaching Machine, A Critique of Post-Colonial Reason, Death of a Discipline. These are major works by Gayatri Spivak. Yeah. Next. In Gender Trouble, Butler critiques the feminist foundationist claim that a stable category of women exists. She argues that the appearance of a permanent internal gender identity is actually dash. Very easy question from Butler. Butler argues that appearance of a permanent internal gender identity is actually what? Yeah, right, Polomi. It's an effect produced through the stylized repetition of performative acts. It's an effect produced through the stylized repetition of performative acts. Correct. 3 is the answer. Next, again, we have a match the following question. Mikhail Bakhtin, Kristeva, Frederick James, and Homi Bhabha. Mikhail Bakhtin wrote Rabelais and His World. Kristeva wrote Powers of Horror. Frederick Jameson wrote The Political Unconscious. And Homi K. Bhabha wrote The Location of Culture. Right? Is that correct? Yes. So Mikhail Bakhtin wrote Rabelais and His World. It's a foundational text which introduced the concept of the carnivalesque. Kristeva wrote Powers of Horror. It's an influential essay on the concept of abjection. Frederick Jameson wrote The Political Unconscious, a landmark work in Marxist literary criticism advocating for the historical interpretation of texts. And Homi Bhabha wrote The Location of Culture, a key post-colonial text that explores the concepts of hybridity and mimicry. All right, clear? Right. Next. In his seminal work, Simulacra and Simulation, 1981, Baudrillard outlines the precision of simulacra, describing the successive phases through which the sign transitions until it loses all connection to reality, until the sign or the image loses all connection to reality. So you have to identify the correct four phases of the image in the proper order as described by Baudrillard. Please like the session, everyone. Why only 13 likes? So it's a question from postmodernism. Baudrillard's postmodernism, where an image loses all connection to reality gradually. Precision of simulacra. Let's look at the answer now. You are saying 1 or option B. Let's see. It is 1. So first, the image reflects a profound reality. It masks and denatures a profound reality. It masks the absence of a profound reality. And lastly, it has no relation to any reality whatsoever. This is how this idea progresses. Okay, so yes, 1 is the correct answer. From the idea of reflecting a profound reality to no relation to any reality whatsoever. Right, correct. It's a major idea of postmodernism. So see the phase 1, but the image is a good appearance. In phase 2, it becomes an evil appearance. In phase 3, it plays at being an appearance, the sorcery of simulation. And lastly, it is no longer in the order of appearance at all, but of simulation. Right? Okay. Which of the following essays are included in Mikhail Bakhtin's seminal collection, The Dialogic Imagination, which is edited by Michael Holquist? Which essays are there in the collection, The Dialogic Imagination? The Dialogic Imagination. Which essays are there in this collection? Which essays are there in this collection? Of Mikhail Bakhtin's The Dialogic Imagination. Epic and the novel, yes. From the prehistory of novelistic discourse. Forms of time and the chronotope in the novel. Discourse in the novel, yes. Toward a philosophy of the act, no, no, no. It will be correct. 3, option 3. A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. Epic and novel from the prehistory of novelistic discourse, forms of time and the chronotope in the novel, discourse in the novel. These are the essays in the collection, The Dialogic Imagination by Mikhail Bakhtin. E is not there. So A, B, C, D only. Yes, option 3 is the right answer. A, B, C, D only. These are the essays in the collection, The Dialogic Imagination by Mikhail Bakhtin, a major theorist of the novel. Right. So that's all from our side for tonight. I really hope you guys liked the session. I hope you enjoyed answering these questions. It was just the first session of theory and criticism. So I kept the questions a bit easier, because on the very first day of theory, I did not want to jump on you all with all the mightiest questions possible. That would have been absurd. So since it was just the first session of theory and criticism, I thought let's keep the questions a bit on the easier side. But from tomorrow onwards, I would like to keep the questions a bit on the higher side, right? So tomorrow also we will be back at 9:30 with more net GRF style questions. All right. And so see you all again tomorrow then at 9:30 p.m. Till then, please do take care and do like the session as well, please. Okay. And do join our net online course for December batch. All right. It was lovely meeting you all again at this time. So see you all again tomorrow at 9:30. Bye. Good night.